Tony Manconi, step away from the vehicle and keep your hands visible.
We're getting ready for morning routes. What's this about?
Once is a mistake, twice is suspicious. Tony Mancuso did this for 4 straight years across hundreds of routes and left a GPS log for every single one that proves it.
We're investigating transportation invoices submitted to the district.
Transportation schedules change every day.
He would not get the chance to explain. By the time the inspectors finished walking his yard that morning, they had photographed every bus, logged every license plate, and pulled the GPS records for vehicles he had been billing the district to drive for nearly 4 years. The numbers were already in: $603,000, 42 months in state prison, a permanent bar from every public school contract in the state. And on the mornings the district paid him to deliver their children, the buses had never left the yard. Quick question before we go any further. Would you notice if your kid's school bus stopped coming for a week? Drop a comment and let me know how long it would take you to call the district about it. And if you're not subscribed yet, now is the time. We cover cases like this one every single week, and you are going to want to see exactly how this one ends. Anthony Salvatore Mancuso was born in 1974 in the borough of Westboro, a working-class commuter town 53 minutes northeast of the city. His father, Salvatore Mancuso, drove a city sanitation truck for 29 years. His mother, Connie Mancuso, ran a small alterations counter at the back of a dry cleaner's on Bensonhurst Avenue. The family lived on the top floor of a 2-family row house with a vinyl awning over the stoop and a small statue of St. Anthony in the front garden. Tony was the middle of 3 boys. His older brother became an electrician. His younger brother joined the Marine Corps and never came back to Westboro. Tony was the one who stayed. Teachers at St. Catherine of Siena Elementary remembered him as a quiet kid who was always good with engines. By the time he was 11, he could tear down a lawnmower and put it back together. His 7th grade shop teacher wrote on a report card that the boy showed strong mechanical aptitude and a careful, patient way with tools. He graduated from Westboro Vocational High School in 1992 with a certificate in diesel mechanics. He took a job the following Monday at a fleet maintenance garage on Industrial Parkway, making $9.20 an hour servicing delivery trucks and short-haul box vans. He was 19 years old. He kept his lunch in a metal pail his grandfather had used on the city docks. He met Roseanne Civello in the spring of 1995 at a sausage stand outside the San Gennaro Festival in the city. She was 22 and worked the cosmetics counter at a department store on Broad Street. They were engaged within 14 months and married at St. Catherine of Siena in October of 1996. The reception was held in the basement hall of the Sons of Italy Lodge on Pulaski Avenue. Their first child, Anthony Jr., was born the following August. A daughter, Gianna, followed in 2001. Tony moved up at the garage. By his late 20s, he was a shift foreman, then a service manager, then the man the owner sent out to bid on municipal fleet maintenance contracts. He learned the language of public sector procurement the slow way, sitting in the back of school board meetings and county commission hearings, listening to how the awards got written, how the per-unit rates were calculated, what kind of paperwork made the auditors stop asking questions. In 2009, he left the garage and started his own company out of a rented half-acre lot on the south end of Bensonhurst Avenue. He named it Mancuso Student Transport. He bought 4 used school buses from a district selling off its older fleet, painted them all the same shade of school bus yellow with the cursive Mancuso lettering on the side, and signed his first contract with the Hartfield Township Consolidated School District on August 19th of that year. He worked 16-hour days the first year. He drove a route himself in the mornings, did fleet maintenance in the afternoons, and met with the district transportation office on Wednesdays. The buses ran on time. Parents wrote thank you notes. The Hartfield Township Board of Education renewed his contract in 2011, doubled the route count, and within 3 years, Mancuso Student Transport was running 31 routes across 4 municipalities, employing 19 drivers and 4 mechanics, and grossing just over $2 million a year. By 2018, Tony Mancuso was a respected figure in Westboro. He sat on the board of the Westboro Italian-American Civic Association. He sponsored the Bensonhurst Little League Under-12 team. He bought a 4-bedroom split-level on Cedar Glen Drive with a finished basement and an in-ground pool. His son was at the State University studying business. His daughter was in 10th grade and ran cross-country for Westboro High. He was, by every visible measure, what the neighborhood called a self-made man. He was also, by that point, billing the district for routes that did not exist. The Hartfield Township Consolidated School District served 14,482 students across 9 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, and 2 high schools, spread across roughly 51 square miles of suburban and semi-rural municipality. The district owned no buses of its own. It had divested its in-house transportation fleet in 2007 in a cost-cutting measure pushed through during the financial crisis, on the recommendation of a consulting firm that calculated the district could save $2.1 million annually by contracting out to private vendors. The savings calculation depended on a particular arrangement. The district paid its contractors per route and per mile. A route was defined as a single morning or afternoon run, picking up or delivering a defined set of students between a defined set of stops. Mileage was tracked from the moment the bus left the contractor's yard until it returned. The district reimbursed at a fixed rate per route, plus a variable rate per mile, with surcharges for special needs routes, after-school activity runs, and weather-related delays. There was one critical assumption baked into the whole system. The district did not have its own GPS infrastructure on the buses. The district did not station observers at the bus yards. The district had no independent mechanism to confirm whether a bus had actually run a route, picked up a child, or driven a single mile. The verification mechanism, in its entirety, was the contractor's own paperwork. Every morning, each driver was supposed to fill out a daily run sheet. The run sheet recorded the route number, the bus number, the driver's name, the start and end times, the odometer readings at departure and return, the number of students picked up, and any incidents or deviations. The sheets were collected at the end of the week by the contractor's dispatcher, totaled into a weekly summary, and submitted to the district transportation office along with the invoice. The district transportation director, a woman named Marlene Briggs, reviewed the summaries against the master route schedule, cross-checked the mileage figures against a baseline derived from a manual route survey conducted once every 3 years, and signed off. Payment was issued within 30 days. Marlene Briggs had 4 full-time staff members and oversight of more than 400 daily route runs across 5 separate contractors. She had inherited the verification system from her predecessor in 2014. She had raised concerns about it in writing twice, in 2015 and 2017, and been told that adding GPS verification across all contracted fleets would cost the district $83,000 a year and was not in the budget. The trust framework was simple. The district trusted the contractor to tell the truth about whether the bus had moved. The parent trusted the bus to come. The driver trusted the dispatcher's assignment. And on the mornings when none of those things were true, no one in the system was in a position to know. The first Phantom route ran in October of 2018, or rather, it did not run. Route 17B was an afternoon high school activity run, a single bus that was supposed to pick up after-school athletes at 3 different practice fields and drop them at 4 bus stops across the eastern half of the district. The driver assigned to the route, a 63-year-old man named Wayne Doolin, called in sick on the afternoon of October 4th. Tony Mancuso took the call himself. He looked at the dispatch board. He had no spare driver and no spare bus, because 3 other buses were out for mechanical repairs. He had 2 choices. He could call Marlene Briggs at the district office, report the cancellation, and accept the per-route deduction, which, on a single afternoon activity run, was roughly $312, including the mileage credit. Or he could fill out a run sheet himself, sign Wayne Doolin's name, list a plausible odometer differential, and submit it with the next invoice. He chose the second option. He told himself the practice was over by the time he made the decision, that the athletes had already found rides home, that he would make it up the following week. The invoice cleared. The check arrived. No one called. The second phantom route ran in late November, then 2 in December. By the start of the spring semester in 2019, he was billing for an average of 3 to 5 phantom route runs per week. The mechanics evolved. He began to inflate mileage on routes that did run. A bus that legitimately drove 47 miles on its morning loop got logged at 53. A driver who clocked out at 8:14 had her run sheet adjusted to 8:42 to push the route into the higher per-hour bracket. He started billing for redundancy buses, backup vehicles that the contract permitted him to bill for if they were on standby for route coverage. Every morning on paper, every spare bus in his yard was on standby. In reality, they were parked under a tarp behind the maintenance shed because he had not had spare drivers for any of them since 2017. He began billing for routes on days the district was closed, snow days, teacher and service days, the week between Christmas and New Year's. The reasoning, he later told investigators, was that on those days the buses were still technically on the contract. He read the contract language about contracted route days and decided it was ambiguous. He took the ambiguity in his favor, every single time. By the fall of 2019, the operation had a routine. Every Thursday night, Tony sat at the kitchen table on Cedar Glen Drive with a binder of blank run sheets and a list of his routes, and he filled them in. He used 6 different pens. He varied his handwriting between sheets. He had practiced Wayne Doolin's signature until he could write it without thinking. He had practiced 4 other drivers' signatures the same way. The drivers had no idea their names were on run sheets for routes they had never driven. The drivers were still getting paid for the routes they did drive. Nothing on their end looked different. He inflated his lifestyle in small, careful steps. The pool got a new heater. Gianna got a used Honda for her 16th birthday, and then a new one for high school graduation. Roseanne got a kitchen renovation with quartz countertops and a custom island. They booked an 8-day Mediterranean cruise for their 25th anniversary in 2021. He paid cash for a fishing boat in 2022, a 21-foot Grady White with a 150 horsepower outboard, kept at a marina 40 minutes away in a town where no one from Westboro went. The total, over 46 months of operation, was $603,422 in fraudulent invoices, broken across roughly 900 individual phantom run sheets, 23 months of inflated mileage across legitimate routes, and 111 full route days billed on closed school dates. No one at the district noticed. No one audited. No one checked. Until the first week of October 2022, when a mother named Tracy Halverson called Marlene Briggs to ask why her daughter Olivia's bus had not shown up for 9 school days in a row. Olivia Halverson was a 7th grader at Hartfield Township Middle School East. She lived with her mother and stepfather on Linden Street, 3 blocks south of a corner stop served by Route 22A, a morning elementary and middle school combination run that picked up at 6 different corners between 7:02 and 7:31 a.m. On the morning of September 22, 2022, Olivia stood at her corner with 3 other children from the neighborhood. The bus did not come. After 15 minutes, the children walked back to their houses, and the parents drove them to school separately. Tracy Halverson assumed mechanical trouble. She did not call. The bus did not come the next morning, or the morning after. By the end of the week, Olivia had missed the bus 4 times. Tracy called the school. The school told her to call the district transportation office. The district transportation office told her there was no record of any missed run on Route 22A. The route, according to the contractor's run sheets, had run every morning that week, on time, with all stops served. Tracy Halverson did not believe the office. She called back the following Monday. She told Marlene Briggs that she had personally watched her daughter stand at the corner of Linden and Magnolia for 30 minutes on Friday morning, that 2 other mothers had been there with her, and that no school bus had passed through that intersection in either direction. Marlene Briggs pulled the run sheet for Route 22A for Friday, September 30th. The sheet said the bus had departed the yard at 6:47, completed all 6 stops between 7:02 and 7:31, delivered students at 7:48, and returned to the yard at 8:09. The driver of record was a woman named Helen Vargas. The bus was Mancuso Fleet Vehicle number 14. Marlene Briggs called Tony Mancuso on the morning of October 3rd, 2022. She told him a parent was complaining that Route 22A had not run. She read him the date. She asked him to look into it. He told her there must be a misunderstanding, that the route had run, that he would talk to the driver and call her back by the end of the day. He did not call her back. What Tony Mancuso did not know was that 14 months earlier, in July of 2021, the district had quietly received a state transportation grant of $146,000 to install GPS telematics units on the buses of every contracted fleet operating district routes. Mancuso Student Transport had been the second fleet to be equipped. The units had been installed by a third-party vendor over a single weekend in August of 2021. Tony had been told the units were for route optimization and would have no effect on billing. He had signed off without reading the technical specifications. The units had been recording every mile every Mancuso bus drove for 14 months. The data had been streaming to a server at the State Transportation Department's Contractor Compliance Office. No one at the district had been pulling it. No one at the Contractor Compliance Office had been looking at it. The data was just sitting there, on a hard drive in a windowless server room in the state capitol, waiting for someone to ask a question. On the afternoon of October 3rd, after she hung up the phone with Tony Mancuso, Marlene Briggs asked the question. Marlene Briggs called the State Department of Education's Contractor Compliance Liaison at 2:14 p.m. on October 3rd, 2022. She asked whether the GPS telematics data from the Mancuso Student Transport fleet was retrievable. She was told it was, and that the entire 14-month archive could be pulled within 48 hours. The data came back on October 5th. Marlene Briggs sat in her office for 2 hours reading a printout that ran to 460 pages. Bus number 14, the bus listed as the vehicle for Route 22A on the morning of September 30th, had not moved that day. The GPS log showed the vehicle parked at the Mancuso yard on Bensonhurst Avenue with the ignition off and the doors locked from 5:48 p.m. on September 29th until 6:17 a.m. on October 1st. 40 hours and 29 minutes of zero motion. Bus number 14 had also not moved on September 28th, 27th, 26th, 23rd, 22nd, 21st, the Route 22. A run sheet showed it running on every one of those mornings. Marlene Briggs pulled the GPS data on every Mancuso vehicle for every billable run day in the 14 months the units had been recording. She built a spreadsheet. She cross-referenced it against the run sheets Tony Mancuso had submitted. By the morning of October 7th, she had a list of 143 specific route days where the run sheet said a bus had run and the GPS said the bus had been parked in the yard the entire time. She called the district superintendent, Dr. Edwin Crowley. She called the school board attorney. By October 9th, she had called the county prosecutor's office. The case was assigned to investigator Patricia Quinones of the Public Integrity Unit. Investigator Quinones had been with the unit for 11 years and had previously handled fraud cases involving a municipal sanitation contractor, a parks department supervisor, and a county clerk who had been billing for hours she did not work. She read Marlene Briggs' spreadsheet in a single afternoon. She did not need to read it twice. A grand jury subpoena was issued on October 14th, 2022, for the complete records of Mancuso Student Transport. All daily run sheets going back to the start of the current contract. All invoices, all banking records, all driver employment files, all maintenance logs, and all communications between Tony Mancuso and the District Transportation Office. The records came in on October 21st. Investigator Quinones spent the next 6 weeks reading them. She built a parallel spreadsheet to the one Marlene Briggs had built, but larger. She matched every individual run sheet against the GPS log for the assigned bus on that date. She found 911 phantom route runs over 46 months. She found mileage inflation on 1,428 legitimate run sheets, averaging 11% over the actual GPS-measured distance. She found 111 full route days billed on days the district had been closed. The total dollar figure of the overbilling, calculated to the cent against the contract's per route and per mile reimbursement schedule, was $603,422.76. She also pulled the bank records. Tony Mancuso's personal checking account at First Westboro Savings showed regular weekly deposits from Mancuso Student Transport's business account at amounts that did not correlate with any standard payroll draw. Over the same 46-month period, he had moved $471,000 from the business account into personal accounts or large cash purchases. The remaining $130,000 had gone to the boat, the cruise, the kitchen renovation, and 2 used cars purchased with cashier's checks. Investigator Quinones interviewed Wayne Doolin in November. Wayne Doolin looked at 3 run sheets bearing what appeared to be his signature and told her, without hesitation, that he had never seen any of them, that he had been on medical leave during the dates listed on 2 of them, and that the third was for a route he had never been assigned to drive. Wayne Doolin agreed to cooperate with the investigation. She interviewed Helen Vargas next. She interviewed 4 other drivers. Every one of them said the same thing. None of them had signed the sheets that bore their names. None of them had been told their signatures were appearing on billing documents. The smoking gun, in the end, was not the run sheets. It was not the bank records. It was a single screenshot Investigator Quinones printed out and put at the front of her case file. It showed a satellite view of the Mancuso bus yard on Bensonhurst Avenue at 7:14 a.m. on the morning of September 30th, 2022. Every bus the company owned was visible in the yard. Every bus was parked. Not one of them was moving. And the district had been billed, on paper signed in Tony Mancuso's own hand, for 15 of those buses to be on the road that morning, picking up 640 children. The grand jury indicted on January 11th, 2023. The arrest was executed at 6:41 a.m. on the morning of Wednesday, January 18th, 2023, at the Mancuso Student Transport Yard on Bensonhurst Avenue. Investigator Patricia Quinones brought 4 uniformed officers from the County Sheriff's Department and 2 investigators from the State Department of Education's Contractor Compliance Unit. They arrived in 3 unmarked vehicles and parked across the gravel drive in a way that blocked the gate. Tony Mancuso was in the dispatch shack. He was on the phone with a driver who had reported a flat tire on a route to Hartfield Township Elementary School number 6. He saw the vehicles pull in through the window above his desk. He hung up without saying goodbye. He met them in the gravel yard. He was wearing the same black quarter zip with the Mancuso logo he had worn the day he signed the first contract back in 2009. His breath was visible in the cold January air. 3 of his drivers were standing near their buses watching. None of them moved. Investigator Quinones identified herself. She held up a sealed warrant. She told him he was under arrest on charges of theft of public funds, fraud, and falsification of records. He did not run. He did not raise his voice. He looked at her for a long moment, and then he said the only thing he would say before requesting an attorney. "You don't understand. The contract was ambiguous on a lot of this." Investigator Quinones did not respond. She read him his rights. The officer to her left stepped forward with handcuffs. "I built this company from 4 buses. I drove the routes myself for 2 years before I hired my first driver. I never missed a pickup. You were billing for routes that didn't run, Mr. Mancuso. That's not how the contract reads. We have GPS data on every bus in this yard for the last 14 months. The buses didn't move on the days you billed for them." Tony Mancuso looked at her. He opened his mouth. He closed it. The handcuffs went on at 6:46 a.m. "I want a lawyer." Those were the last words he spoke to anyone in the yard. The officer walked him across the gravel and put him in the back of the sheriff's sedan. The drivers who had been standing near their buses watched the sedan pull out. None of them said anything. The buses, which had been about to begin the morning runs, sat in the yard for the next 6 hours, while investigators photographed the office, copied the hard drives, and inventoried the run sheets in the filing cabinet behind the desk. The district had to call every one of the affected schools to inform them that the morning bus runs would not be happening. For the first time in 14 years, the children on the Mancuso routes were not picked up that morning. This time, the district knew. We are about to head into the courtroom. Before we do, if this case has kept your attention this far, that's because the story deserved to be told properly. Subscribe if you agree. We do this every single week, and the sentencing on this one is going to stay with you. The indictment, filed by the County Prosecutor's Office on January 11th, 2023, contained 47 counts. The lead charge was theft of public funds in the second degree, a felony carrying a state sentencing range of 5 to 10 years. The remaining counts were divided among fraud in the second degree, falsifying business records in the first degree, forgery in the second degree, and theft by deception. Each phantom run sheet was a separate count of falsification. The prosecutor's office chose to consolidate the run sheets into representative counts rather than charge 911 separate felonies, but the dollar figure remained intact. Tony Mancuso retained an attorney named Michael Greco, a Westboro-based criminal defense lawyer who had previously represented a city councilman on a campaign finance case and a regional supermarket chain owner on a wage theft case. Greco was 61 years old, white-haired, soft-spoken, and known in the courthouse for negotiating quietly rather than fighting publicly. Greco filed motions in February and March of 2023 to suppress the GPS data on grounds that Tony Mancuso had not knowingly consented to the telematics installation. The judge denied the motion in a written opinion on April 12th, citing the signed acknowledgement form Tony had executed in August of 2021 and the state regulation requiring such installations on contracted school transportation fleets. A second motion sought to challenge the dollar calculation on grounds that the contract's reimbursement language was ambiguous regarding standby buses and closed school dates. The judge took testimony from Marlene Briggs and from a state contracts auditor. The judge denied the motion on May 23rd. The opinion noted, in language that became a quote in the local newspaper, that no reasonable reading of the contract permits a contractor to bill for vehicles that did not operate, for routes that did not run, or for mileage that was not driven. The defense had no path to trial. The GPS data was irrefutable. The forged driver signatures were established by sworn statements from 5 drivers, 3 of whom were prepared to testify at trial. The bank records traced the flow of money from the fraudulent invoices into Tony Mancuso's personal accounts in a way that the defense could not credibly explain. A plea agreement was reached in early July of 2023. Tony Mancuso would plead guilty to 1 consolidated count of theft of public funds in the second degree and 1 consolidated count of falsifying business records in the first degree. The remaining counts would be dismissed at sentencing. The state would recommend a sentence of 42 months in state prison, full restitution in the amount of $603,422.76, and a permanent bar from holding or applying for any school district transportation contract anywhere in the state. The plea was entered on July 24th, 2023. Sentencing was scheduled for October 11th. The sentencing hearing was held in the courtroom of Judge Helen O'Rourke in the county courthouse in Westboro. The courtroom was 3/4 full. 22 parents from the affected school district routes attended. Marlene Briggs sat in the second row behind the prosecutor's table. Wayne Doolin sat in the back. Roseanne Mancuso sat alone in the first row behind the defense table. Anthony Jr. and Gianna did not attend. The prosecutor presented the case in 23 minutes. The defense presented a 3-page sentencing memorandum and called no witnesses. Tracy Halverson gave the victim impact statement. She read from a single page she had written by hand the night before. For 9 days in September of last year, my daughter stood at a corner in the dark with 3 other kids waiting for a bus that wasn't coming. The temperature was 38 degrees the first morning. I drove past that corner the next day, and I saw 4 kids standing there. Mr. Mancuso was billing the school district to pick those kids up. He was getting paid for it. He cashed those checks. And while my daughter stood on that corner, he was driving a boat he bought with that money. A school bus is the smallest promise a town makes to a parent. He broke that promise every morning. He broke it on purpose. He broke it for a kitchen renovation. She sat down. Roseanne Mancuso did not look up. Judge Rourke addressed the defendant for 4 minutes before pronouncing sentence. She quoted from the contract. She quoted from the GPS log for September 30th, 2022. She referenced the 4 mothers who had testified before the grand jury. She said the following in her sentencing remarks, in language that local reporters wrote down word for word. Mr. Mancuso, you did not steal from a faceless institution. You stole from a system that exists for one purpose, which is to bring children safely from their homes to their schools and back again. You collected public money on the mornings you let those children stand on corners in the cold. You forged the signatures of drivers who trusted you. You falsified the records that were supposed to protect this public against exactly the kind of fraud you committed. The contract was not ambiguous, sir. The promise to those families was not ambiguous. You knew what you were doing every time you signed a run sheet. You did it for 4 years. She imposed the agreed sentence. 42 months in state custody. Full restitution payable on a schedule to be set by the parole department upon release. Permanent disqualification from public school transportation contracting. 3 years of supervised parole following release. Tony Mancuso was remanded into custody that afternoon. He was transported to the State Correctional Facility at Westbridge, a medium-security state prison located 97 miles northwest of Westboro. He was assigned to general population, given a job in the prison kitchen, and listed as eligible for parole consideration in March of 2026. Mancuso Student Transport ceased operations on July 1, 2023, between the entry of the plea and the sentencing. The remaining contracted routes were absorbed by 2 other vendors at the start of the following school year. The yard on Bensonhurst Avenue was sold to a commercial landscaping company in late 2024. The buses were auctioned. 6 of them are still in service, repainted and renumbered in 3 different counties of the state. Roseanne Mancuso filed for divorce in February of 2024. She kept the house on Cedar Glen Drive. The Grady White boat was sold at auction to satisfy a portion of the restitution. Tracy Halverson's daughter, Olivia, is now in 9th grade. She rides a different bus, run by a different company, that arrives at her corner at 7:14 a.m. every morning. She still looks down the street every day to see if it is coming. This case was hard to sit with. But the case on your screen right now is harder. The man in that one didn't break a promise to a few corners. He broke it to an entire hospital. Click it now.